Welcome, Drink with James, episode 144. We are still in my unfinished office. We don't have any good light, which is actually fine because I looked like some sort of pale, disgusting, bearded ghost in the last video. I don't know that like direct light on my skin is actually a good thing for me. I'm Swedish. I have a history of skin cancer in my family. Very important that I stay out of the sun. And if I do happen to go in it, very important that I apply quite a bit of sunscreen. So I stay a kind of purple, pink color most of the year round. And I don't know that like direct sunlight is like a good look for me. So I'm more comfortable in the gloom of a kind of shitty New York City day. And let's just get into some stuff here. I want to first say, Kim Kardashian did a giveaway this week. She has since deleted it. I think it had like 70 accounts that you had to go follow. I think all 70 of those accounts had to do a buy-in to get into the giveaway. I'm sure she made, over $500,000 on it. But, just because Kim, and you guys know I love Kim, just because Kim did it does not in any way, shape, or form make giveaways okay. They are, I had someone reach out and they're just like, well, what if people stay followers after a giveaway? Like, it is 100% possible that happens. And like, I'm not saying that giveaways are a totally fake way of gaining a following. But again, it's just not a way to like build a business. If you're feeling like, oh, I'm at 97K and I want to get over the hump and I'm going to do this giveaway, fine. Like, it doesn't mean that like you're delegitimized as an influencer and your following is no longer authentic. But like, those people aren't following you because they like you. They're following you because they want free shit. And if they don't unfollow you, it's probably because they just forget to, not because they're like all of a sudden like, oh my God, I want that Chanel bag, follow. And then they're like, oh, I really, really, really like this content and I'm just going to stick around now. I know that happens. I'm sure that probably does happen. But I don't think it's that common. I think mostly people want free shit. So in this case, Kim is in many ways my North Star. But in this case, I would say that I would not do it. It does not make it okay just because Kim did it. I also just can't imagine why the hell she did it. Like, don't you have enough money that you don't have to degrade yourself into doing this giveaway for like $500,000, which for her is a rounding error? I don't know. Something else to talk about. I saw that Lush, the like bath products company, recently said they're like leaving Instagram because they're like so sick of the algorithm or some bullshit like that. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Like, you are not entitled to a following. You're not entitled to people liking the content that you're putting out. And like, yes, it can be frustrating, but like the world changes really, really quickly. And if you are online trying to hold a following, right, you have to be kind of on the cutting edge of something. You have to be constantly reinventing yourself and doing something different all the time. And that is really hard. And if you can't do it, your business dies, you lose followers, you are no longer as effective. Again, like, full magazines are going out of business all the time, full of talented people, because they are no longer capable of capturing people's attention, right? And so like, Lush being like, we're leaving Instagram because this algorithm is like screwing with our ability to reach our customers. I think it's more a point of just like, people obviously aren't interested in the content you're putting out. Again, like this algorithm, it's not predatory. It's not like the algorithm doesn't get out of bed in the morning and be like, I'm gonna fuck with that person today. Like, and only that person, because there are people out there killing it. There are people who are reaching well over 50% of their audience. There are people who are growing all the time. And like, that can't be everyone. By the nature of the way things work and markets work, there always has to be leaders and there has to be people that get left behind. And if you were at one point one of the leaders, if you were at one point someone who was growing really quickly and you're not now, that can be frustrating. But you have to remember, like, that's also just how the world works and you need to reinvent and pivot and try something new. Again, like I go back to my Rolling Stones example, but like the Rolling Stones, you know, one of, if not the greatest band of all time, they couldn't today, if they were like, let's make a #1 hit, they couldn't do it. But like, you know, Billie, whatever her name is, who's 17 years old and wears like, you know, dresses like a Nirvana fan from 1990, like she's killing it right now, right? And like, is she as talented as the Rolling Stones? You know, probably not, although her shit is, it slaps, it's good. Is she as talented? Probably not, but like she's young and she's new and she's different, and that is all that matters in pop culture generally. And so like this shit just happens, and when you kind of stomp your foot and say like, it's not my fault, it's someone else's fault, it's sad and it's so boring and it's counterproductive, because there are people out there who are making it happen, and you can too, but probably not by doing the same thing and bitching and moaning constantly about the algorithm. Should we get into questions? So how do you do organic posts that are about a brand, not make it be an ad, but you know, make it about the brand and helpful for the brand? First of all, if you're a new influencer starting out, you should be doing this all the time. You know, just make a list of your 10 favorite products every month and do a post about them. You know, let's say you do 30 posts in a month, do 10 that are really product focused, and practice telling those stories. You know, think about what you love about it. I think that like Grace, one of the women that works here, she says that like, you know, the first thing you tell someone about a product is generally the like most interesting thing about it, or the way that you should lead with it. And when you're telling stories about products, think about that. What is the thing that you would tell your friend about it that would convince them to use it, and go with that? I just did a post about these Headspace sleep casts that I love. And like, it was interesting. One, yes, I did try and build a post kind of like a sponsored post, and I sought out to like try and convince people to try this thing. It was very like explicit. I wasn't just being like, oh, I'm gonna do a post here. I was like, I'm gonna try and craft a post that can convince some people to try this. And I had been using it for weeks. I really loved it. I'd been talking about it organically. I told a little story about the fact that I've been struggling to sleep. I talked about what specifically made Sleepcast so great, and you know, encouraged people to try it. And then over the next couple of days, I posted stories at night talking about the Sleepcast, and I got, you know, dozens of messages about it, about people who downloaded the app because of that, about people who also loved it, people who had questions, people who used competing apps. I had like 5 or 6 times as many saves as I usually do, which to me indicates that people are saving it because people want to go back and reference it at a later time. But to me, like, that was successful, right? Like, one of my friends joked and was like, oh, you forgot hashtag ad. And yes, they are a client, but obviously they're not paying me to talk about this. But I wanted to try to do what y'all do and try and craft a message that could try and, you know, convince someone to take some action. And, you know, it's not necessarily easy, but I do think it all has to come from a place of personal experience and a place of actually using the product. And, you know, make a checklist, like whatever it is, like come up with some system that helps you understand what it is about a product that makes it great. Because that's the thing you need to be able to distill and communicate to your audience if you're going to be a successful influencer, right? Like, why is this thing great and why should you spend your money on it? Being able to answer that question is paramount to being successful as an influencer from a brand partnership standpoint, not necessarily from the ability to create, you know, engaging or beautiful content, but to turn that ability to create engaging, beautiful content into a sustainable business that can, you know, can grow and can be something that you do for years and years to come. You have to be able to tell those brand stories in a way that is compelling and concise and clear. And I think so simple and compelling that it it removes barriers to entry for people to try something that they're just like, you know what, that sounds great, I'm going to try that. Again, harder for bigger purchases, but like I bought a $5,000 20-year-old camera because of people on the internet, you know, and like it worked. Now they weren't trying to sell me that camera, they were just shooting with it, but like I think I was using a Sleepcast for like 2 weeks before I posted about it. And I think that, you know, in your paid or organic brand partnerships, I think you should try and set a time and say to the brand, I need at least a week to use this product before I post. So if they send it to you on a Tuesday and they say, I need to post by Wednesday, I would push back and say, you know what, for me to make this post make sense, I really need to use the product for a while and I need to live with it and I need at least a week. I think most brands, unless they're under some insane deadline where like, you know, something is launching and they need to get the post out, will really, really appreciate that because they just don't hear it much. I don't think influencers are taking their personal experience and putting it into the brand messaging really effectively. I think that like as a whole, influencers are actually doing a terrible job at that. So I think doing that and understanding how to communicate those things clearly can be a huge competitive advantage. Question number 2 is, what's with all the anger towards influencer as a career? This is something I was just talking to Taylor from The Atlantic about. It is baffling and frustrating how much shit influencers get as a whole. Like influencer culture, people being like, oh, influencer culture is gonna like ruin this world. It's the end of us. It's like influencers as a group get a huge amount of shit online, in you know, print publications, just in general. Why? You know, I think one thing is I think it's a mixture of misunderstanding and jealousy. I think that everyone at this point has probably taken and posted an Instagram in their life, and to think that there are people out there who make $10,000 for doing the thing that takes you 10 seconds is infuriating. You know, it's frustrating to work your entire life, you know, work your way up the ladder, make, you know, $75,000 after 10 or 15 years of work, and to have a 20-year-old who, you know, publishes photos of themselves on the internet make that in 2 weeks is, you know, always going to be difficult for people to understand. And I think that like it's different than being a musician or being an actor, because people look at musicians and they say, well, you know, Billie, do you know her last name?
It's like Eilish.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah. Billie Eilish, I don't know what her name is. You know, she's 17 and she's killing it right now, but like, I can't write a song. I'm not like talented musically. So like, it makes sense that she makes all that money. And like, you know, The Rock is printing money right now, and just always, like literally he's probably at the Federal Reserve right now printing money for himself. But like, people look at what he does and they say, I can't do that. So it makes sense that he would make all that money. But they look at someone posting an Instagram photo and they say, I do that every fucking day and I don't make that money. And, you know, as influencer posts have become more authentic and in the moment and less editorial, even more so, it's like, I could do that. You know, it's the same reason modern art gets all this shit, right? It's like, are you kidding me? Like Rothko, like, threw up some red and some yellow and sold that painting for $20 million. Like, I don't understand it. Jackson Pollock dribbles paint on the fucking floor and calls it art. Like, what? It's why modern art gets so much more shit than a, you know, fairly unimportant, uninteresting piece of Renaissance art, because people look at Renaissance art and they say, well, I couldn't paint that. You know, I could work my whole life and I couldn't paint that, but I could paint a red square on a canvas. Like that I could do. And so I think it is difficult for people to accept that other people are making money off something that they feel like they could do. I think that is the kind of core of what frustrates people about the influencer space, is that they wish they did it, you know? And the famous thing about modern art is, yeah, like I could do that. Yeah, but you didn't. And like, yeah, it's true. Like, you could paint what Rothko painted. I mean, probably not exactly, honestly, but you know, there is certainly modern art that anyone with a ruler and a paintbrush could replicate, but you didn't. And like, the whole point of modern art is that, like, in the context of what art was at the time, it was incredibly revolutionary. And to like put a black stripe on a canvas and call it art was just like completely out there. And so while now it seems really simple and you know, easily replicable, and it's been, you know, in any IKEA canvas that you can buy, it was revolutionary at the time. And like, yes, what some influencers do isn't that hard as far as like a day-to-day thing. Like, it doesn't take a unbelievable amount of talent. I mean, there are some influencers out there that are freakishly talented, one being the person that asked this question. Hi, Jamie. But they were there first. Like, they saw it before you did, you know, like, and that takes foresight, and that takes some courage, and that takes, you know, that takes something, and that is being rewarded a lot of times, right? It's like, they were there and you weren't, right? When you were turning your nose up at Instagram, they were publishing on it every day, or they were running a blog when all their friends were just going out. And like, I think influencers don't get the credit for how much they're changing both media and advertising. And I think we're going to look back on, you know, the people who are really successful, the kind of cream of the influencer crop now, as revolutionaries in 15 or 20 years, because it's never going back. We're not going to go back to magazines. We're not going to go back to, you know, watching TV, honestly. Like, it's all changing so much, and it is touching every piece of pop culture and every piece of media. And I think the people who are, you know, crushing it today are absolutely not getting their due as far as their impact on society and the history of certainly advertising. So let's talk about this in 10 years and see where we're at. Question number 3 is, what exactly happens in brand blogger meetings? Someone says, any advice for a beginner? That's a good question. I mean, you know, we talked about meetings, I think last week or 2 weeks ago.
I think it was last week.
Yeah, I think last week we talked a little bit about meetings and how to be effective in a meeting. But what we didn't talk about is like what actually goes on there. Yeah, a lot of influencers, they come to a city, especially New York, where most of the brands are. They set up a bunch of meetings with those brands. And, you know, what happens in them is you talk about what kind of stuff do you cover? You know, what kind of brands do you cover? Have you done any collaborations before? Tell me about your audience. Tell me about your background. Tell me about what you're looking to do, any travel plans coming up. You're basically trying to brief that brand so that if they have any opportunities coming up, they can figure out where to put you in. And the more that you can, you know, the more complete and complex the things that you do can look, the easier it is for that brand to say, oh, they would fit here, they would fit there, they would be great at that, they would be awesome at this. So it behooves you to come prepared for that, you know, come knowing what are the top brands that you talk about. You know, what are your 5 dream collaborations that if you could work with any brands, what would it be? What makes you different as an influencer? You know, why work with you? That's a question we asked in the Sephora applications, was out of, you know, hundreds of thousands of influencers, why you? You know, because we have 80,000 people in our platform alone, and that's a small part of the influencer community. So like, why should we care about you and what you do? You have to have a compelling answer for that. You're essentially pitching yourself. And if you've never been a salesperson, it really makes sense to practice a little bit. A lot of people are uncomfortable talking about themselves, present company excluded. And so if you're not comfortable doing that, it's good to practice. You don't want to come off sounding, you know, rehearsed. But if a brand says to you like, well, what makes you different? And you're like, oh, well, you know, I think that I just like, I have like a really authentic voice that my audience really like relates to. You know, like I'm already like, meeting's over, time to go. If you can't talk passionately about what you do and about your audience and about the things that you want to do in your dreams, then like, how can I get excited about it? And I think the point of those meetings should be for the brand person to leave feeling excited and like they want to help you. You know, they want to get you in a collaboration. They want to work with you in some way. So you have to bring that like energy level and be like, this is my life. I love this so much. Like, it's been so great to connect with all these amazing women all over the world. And like, you know, let me read you this DM I got the other day. It's incredible. Like, you have to brag a little bit, and there's the balance between like bragging a little bit and like being annoying. It's a difficult balance to strike, and a tightrope that I've walked my entire life. But it is really important to be able to inject some excitement into that room and have them leave and feel like, one, you were memorable, and two, they want to help you, and three, they know how to help you. And if those three things aren't true when you leave a meeting, you have failed. So that's it. One more thing on meetings and brands, like really quickly, because I don't think we've said it in a while. Every single brand in the world, your dream brand, anyone you want to work with, most of the time that is one person that you have to connect with, you know? And all you have to do is get in front of that one person. It is not as intimidating as it sounds. And sure, they may not take your meeting, but like not reaching out because you don't think you're going to get the meeting, like just say that sentence to yourself. I didn't reach out because I didn't think I'd get the meeting. Like, that makes no fucking sense, right? Like, there's nothing to lose. These are just people. They are generally really kind, nice, smart, driven people. They like helping young influencers if they can. And if you give them a compelling reason to, generally I find that those brands will, you know, go out of their way to help you. And you have to reach out though. Like, you cannot, like, unless you're just like, you know, on that Teza curve and you're growing 50,000 followers a month for 18 months, you have to reach out. You have to do the legwork. They're not coming to you. You have to go to them somehow. So don't be intimidated by those meetings. If you've never done it, book a trip to New York. Well, if you've never done it and you're not in New York, pick a random date 2 months in the future, email a bunch of brands, say I'm going to be there that week. If you set up 5 meetings, book the ticket. If you don't, say that your plans changed, you booked a collaboration, you can't come to New York, you'll reschedule some other time. There's, you know, 5 meetings is worth a plane ticket if you can afford it. So that's all, people. The sales team at Fohr is going to go out to dinner. We haven't actually all gone out together in a year. So pray for me, because they generally turn it up. So I'm going to go do that. Cheers.